Sandhills Golf Weekly. I'm Rich Rushforth.
And I'm Michael Dann. We are behind the 18th hole at Little River Golf Club, one of Dan Maple's designs, one of three that he designed here in Moore County. Today we're going to talk with Don Padgett, who's the director of golf at Pinehurst Resort and Country Club. And rather than ask you to go out and play golf naked, we're going to tell you what clothes you should wear to prevent sunburn.
That's a good idea, Michael. Also, the last time you looked at a golf cart, you may have seen the slope on there. Probably wondered what it was. We'll tell you about that. And as if being in a bunker isn't tough enough, how about on a downhill lie? Our golf instruction segment is going to tell you how to get out of that predicament.
Rich, you get to do all the instruction. Let's see you at the first tee.
Drive into Toby Wells' Pontiac Buick GMC truck and find out how you will save thousands during our huge customer appreciation sale. We're introducing the all-new GMC Yukon Sport Utility. Come see the award-winning Buick Century Consumer Digest Best Buy for 3 years in a row, or drive away in the new Pontiac Grand Prix with prices starting at $18,900. Now is the time to purchase your next car or truck during our customer appreciation sale. Come see us today at Toby Wells' Pontiac Buick GMC truck, second to none on US 1 at the top of the Sandhills, Southern Pines.
Little River Golf Club is one of the Sandhills' newest layouts, one that is homegrown. Renowned golf course architect Dan Maples is a Sandhills native who grew up playing on the property, where he created his newest Moore County design. The course opened in 1996, recognized by both Golf Digest and the Mid-Atlantic regional publication, Washington Golf Monthly. Setting on the property known as the Little River Farm, the course and clubhouse carry out the part agrarian, part equestrian theme. Once an international center for training quarter horses, the farm's 700 acres was an ideal setting for a golf course. The Little River Clubhouse, overlooking the 18th green, is a lovely converted barn. Throughout the course, you can find restored barns, huts, and shelters left from those equestrian days. Now, the course can play to a championship length of 6,900 yards. The senior tees, a gentle 5,250 yards, while those red tees are 5,100 yards. The most often white played tees, they're nearly 6,400 yards. The Little River layout has several different looks reflecting the various topographies, as well as several narrow streams and occasional forest of pines and deciduous trees. The course lies in part on the only clay-based land in the Sandhills, while other holes look straight out of the Sandhills. The first few holes wander through hills and trees over quickly changing terrain. The par 4 fourth, a dogleg left with a large leafy oak, a critical part of the layout strategy. Only 350 yards from the back tees, this hole features an approach shot even tougher than it looks, because of a small stream that runs hard to the right of the green, which slopes ever so slightly away from the player. The 5th and 6th are right out of the wheat fields of Kansas, lovely, almost links-like holes with plenty of course management required. The 5th, a beastly par 4 that measures 446 yards from the blue tees, but only 358 from the senior or gold tees. At any length, though, a golfer must deal with danger left of the hole and green. The 6th, a par 5 that might be reachable if you're willing to take on two dangerous challenges. The first asks you to hit your tee shot into an area that diminishes in width as you go along. The second shot involves flirting with a water hazard in front of and just left of the green. The player who goes the safe way can have a short birdie putt with a solid third shot. The back nine begins innocently enough with some open holes, including the par 4 10th, which features another large oak tree in the middle of a generous fairway. But the subsequent stretch is not for the claustrophobic. The 13th is a downhill one-shotter no longer than 129 yards and as short as 72 yards. You simply cannot miss this green. The cart drive from the 13th to the 14th holes, a wonderful experience shared with nature. The 14th, a short par 4 hole, the doglegs left near the green. The 17th hole is a par 5 hole, the doglegs to the right and down the hill for the short third shot. Those who want to risk taking a second shot shortcut toward the green must carry trees and jungle. The hole plays pretty heartily from the back tees, including a 210-yard carry over water from the tee. The senior tees a bit more manageable, 393 yards. The 18th is a par 4 that charms the straight hitter but blasts the not-so-straight shot maker. Only 411 yards from the back tees, 394 from the white. It plays up a steep hill to the clubhouse. The massive driving range with the hitting areas high above the range is one of the largest in the Sandhills area. Halfway between Pinehurst and Carthage on US 15501, the River Golf Club, a wonderful challenge.
We are in the decorated office of Don Padgett here at the Pinehurst Resort. Don is the director of golf. Don has been doing this for at least 40 years. 51 years.
51 years, and enjoyed every bit of it.
Just a few minutes ago, you were talking about having been the president of the Indiana PGA section 40 years ago.
40 years ago.
And you were president of the National PGA.
In 1977 and 1978.
So coming to Pinehurst was vacation?
Well, as I tell most people, that I really and truly have no idea when I'm working and when I'm not.
Well, when you are working, people have described the efforts you've done over the last decade to get the Tour Championship, the U.S. Senior Open, the U.S. Open, and now the U.S. Open again in 5 years. That's a lot of work.
Well, really and truly, and I think it's a moot question unless you have and say, if number 2 was not sitting out there, none of the things that you said would be correct. There's no question that when I came here in 1987, there was a lot of work to be done. In fact, Beth Coker has told people that I said Pinehurst when I came here in 1987 was a piece of junk. And I'm sure that people at that time would not think so, but what's happened here in the last 13 or 14 years has just been terrific.
The attitude of the people who have run Pinehurst over the years, let's say going back 25 years, have been different in their attitudes about what Pinehurst number 2 should be, or how it should be used, or how it can be used, has changed over time. Obviously, when you came here, you were brought here with some goals in mind. Is that the case?
When Pat Corso, the president of Pinehurst, brought me here, he said, we want to have this golf course and this resort be back into national prominence, and preferably on television. So that I would say that in some people might say we've overachieved, but realistically, probably not. Probably not. If you think about what people thought about or the old course at St. Andrews over the last week, and people over there think that a little bit the same way about Pinehurst number 2. It's an old traditional golf course. We try to improve it. We do not take it upon ourselves to do anything to it unless we would have experts like Reese Jones or a Tom Fazio or someone who would say, this is what you need to do and this is why you ought to do it. Other than that, we wouldn't do anything to it.
It's sort of I don't want to compare the two places, but there's an Augusta mentality to that. You don't want to let anybody except the best gem makers or gem handlers handle the gem.
We're probably maybe a little more strict than they are at Augusta because, as you know, they change some holes there from time to time. I don't think, at least I know since I've been here, we really haven't changed a hole.
Okay, in fact, you've restored it to Donald Ross's original design, have you not?
Well, Paul Jett, who's the golf course superintendent on number 2, has been a frequent visitor to the archives here in Pinehurst. And Paul, if he goes over there and he can prove that it's the way it used to be, and guys like Reese and Tom will approve it, then we may alter something around, but not really anything significant.
Okay. A man who's been working in golf for these many years, you still like to look to the future. So what do we have to look forward to in the Pinehurst future, the 9 courses that will be open down the road, including the 2005 U.S. Open?
I would hope that one of these days that we will have the women's amateur back. I would hope that we perhaps would have the men's amateur to play Pinehurst. I think it was here in 1961 or 2. I think that would be really neat to qualify, say, on 2 and 4, right there together, which, you know, gosh, you've been in it a long enough time to know that sometimes the qualifying sites in the men's amateur can be 15, 20 miles apart. But I think the men's amateur at Pinehurst would be really terrific.
That's a neat answer you've given, because it also says something to the people who think that Pinehurst wants to bring in events that make money for Pinehurst. You've mentioned 2 USGA championships that ultimately might cost Pinehurst money to host.
Let me tell you something. We make no money on the Pinehurst Invitational. We make no money on the Pinehurst or the North and South Junior, the North and South Men and Women's Amateur, the North and South Men and Women's Senior Amateur, and the Donald Ross. I can assure you that every time we do that, we lose a significant amount of money. I can also tell you that we don't even think about it. Pinehurst is golf, and to be perfectly honest, Pinehurst for a long time was amateur golf.
The USGA refers to that as giving something back to the game. Your reference point might be a little more historic, as well as that philanthropic attitude. Well,
let me tell you, if you do something for the wrong reason, it ordinarily doesn't turn out right. I think that when we contributed up in the neighborhood of $500,000 to the Boys and Girls Club here, I don't think that had ever been done before at a USGA event, because we took our money and donated that money. There will be skeptics will say, well, you took our money. Well, they gave it to us and we did something good with it. Secondly, when we had the Senior Open here, as I recall, we gave $200,000 to public education. And when we had the 91 and 92 Tour Championships here, I know that in those 2 years, about $600,000 was left in the community and in North Carolina. And we also believe this is a North and South Carolina resort. We don't believe that this resort belongs to Pinehurst and to us. We believe that anything we do is an asset to the state of North Carolina.
Well, it's a different attitude, isn't it? It's kind of a more encompassing attitude. The North and South is being played this week, and has a tremendous history, 100 years old, and a big dinner. Can you tell us a little bit about the dinner?
Well, of course, you know, some of my staff, I'm wearing my Pinehurst jacket that says 1895. Some of them believe that's my birth date. But seriously, this is the 100th anniversary of the North and South. The one thing that you've been around here longer than I, Mike, but if you look at real closely at the North and South plaque, it says the United North and South. And you probably hadn't looked at that like I did. I've been here since 1987. I only looked at that 3 or 4 years ago, and I thought, my goodness, a young fellow like me got out of the service 55 years ago. And I remember that. But the first North and South was played 36 years after the Civil War. So I would imagine that United North and South was saying it was probably better to play golf together than fight.
Good concept, particularly when those matches get a little heated.
Exactly, exactly.
Well, Don, thank you for your time. Busy desk, busy place, a busy person. We thank you for what you've done.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Spread the word. It's Soft Rock Favorites on Star 102.5.
You have a stake in our public schools. Don't miss the Moore County Schools Perspective with me, Superintendent Pat Russo, Thursday mornings at 9:30 and Saturday afternoons at 3:30. We'll talk with the people who make our school system work for the children of Moore County. Come join us.
Watch Moore County Schools Perspective each Thursday morning at 9:30 and Saturday afternoon at 3:30. That's Moore County Schools Perspective, only on WYBE-TV 44.
We're here with Dr. David Klumpar of Carolina Skincare. We're going to talk about clothing and the sun. What should I wear when I'm on the golf course?
Well, it's important, Mike, to cover up as much skin as possible. Certainly the most important part is a wide brim hat. We know that you receive, obviously, most of the sunlight from up above, and the hat enables you to shade the neck as well as the face and especially the ears. Baseball caps, which most of us wear, are really inadequate because the top of the ear just is not covered at all. So wide brim hat is important, and then it really becomes a question of the type of fabric. If one uses fabric with a thick weave, then that protects you much better. It's hard to judge just when you go to Belk's if you have a good shirt that blocks or not, but there are several companies out that produce actually SPF-rated clothing, and they have SPF 15 and SPF 30 clothing. Purchasing clothing with one of those, if you really wanted to be sure that you're getting adequate protection, could be useful.
Are you saying polyester's better than cotton?
No, it's really more a function of the weave. If the thicker the weave, the less airspace there is between the fibers, the less light will get through that airspace. So it's not necessarily that one material is superior to another. It's really a question of the mesh. And also the Gore-Tex type fabrics, the fabrics that have a rubberized lining, for example, will protect better than just a plain fabric without that.
How about long pants versus short pants?
Absolutely. If you're on the tour, then it's a moot point. But otherwise, yes, long pants, long sleeves even are certainly helpful. But if not, using a good sunscreen, SPF 15 at least with zinc oxide or titanium would be helpful at blocking those areas, the exposed areas of skin.
Okay, so wear as much clothing as possible, and then for something that's exposed to the sun, it's an SPF sunscreen.
That's right, exactly. And again, SPF 15 I think is reasonable. If you want a little bit more protection, one can go to a 30 or a 45, but it's the titanium or the zinc oxide as an active ingredient that's the most important consideration.
Okay, if I have too much sun exposure and something happens to my skin, what happens? I come see you, and then what happens?
Well, that leads to skin cancer. We know that exposure to the sun, especially the red blistering burns, are the worst risk factor for melanoma, and that, of course, is the killer. The non-melanoma skin cancers we often treat in the office. They are not lethal, and they also are affected by sun exposure, but there it's more the chronicity of exposure. Long-term low-grade exposure causes the non-melanoma skin cancers. The rapid infrequent burns are the ones that are more important for melanoma.
Are there any signs to look for in melanoma? What should we look for in our bodies?
The most important thing to look for is change, really. We talk about the ABCDs of melanoma: asymmetry, border, color, and diameter. And when one sees an unusual lesion, especially one that's brown, that's enlarging, certainly one that's bled, or one that just keeps scaling on and off, all those are lesions that are worth checking.
So skincare is not something we should three-putt. We have to be very concerned about it.
Absolutely. You want to eagle the skincare for sure.
Thank you, Dr. David Klumpar.
You're welcome.
What is a slope rating? Well, if you're mathematically inclined, it's a coefficient times a differential. Now, if you want that in English, let's first talk about what a course rating team does. It actually determines two course ratings, one for a scratch golfer and one for a bogey golfer. You'll recognize that first number. That's the one you see on the scorecard right next to the slope rating. Both course ratings are expressed to a tenth of a decimal point. Numbers like 71.2, you see that one as the scratch course rating. 96.4 for the bogey golfer. You've likely never seen the bogey course rating written anywhere, but it's a critical number. Let's use those two numbers in this example. The difference between 71.2 and 96.4 is 25.2. Multiply that number by 5.381, and you get, on your calculator, 135.6. That number is rounded up to 136, and that's your men's slope rating. That's it. The difference between the two course ratings times 5.381. The multiplication factor for women is 4.24, but the concept is the same. A slope rating is simply just the expression of the difference between a scratch course rating and a bogey course rating. Really, that's all it is. Not much more to it than that. That's a course rating.
Okay.
$120 degrees in 3 minutes or less. Leaving your pet in a parked car in warm weather can be a deadly mistake.
It is a test, not just of strength, but of the power of the mind. And if you complete the journey, you will be changed forever. The few, the proud, the Marines.
We are at Roberts Golf to ask Bob Burwell about some iron problems that we see all the time on television. Bob, is there any way that those touring pros can really hit a 3-iron 250 yards on television on Sunday afternoon?
Michael, yeah, there are some of them who can do that.
Oh, ouch, that hurts.
Yeah, not many of them, but, you know, Tiger can do that. Probably John Daly can do that. Now, there are a couple of other factors, though, that need to be considered. The 3-iron of today is not the 3-iron that you and I grew up with 20, 25 years ago.
Or more.
Or more. The 3-irons today are probably 3 to 4 degrees stronger in loft. A 3-iron in 1970, the loft was probably 22 degrees. It's now probably 18 or 19. The shafts are longer. The standard length on a 3-iron 20, 25 years ago was probably 38 1/4. They're now 39 inches. That's more arc. That's more club head speed. The balls are better. That's another part of the equipment that I can remember Sam Snead playing number 2 course on the 15th hole, which is a par 3, 196 yards. When he used to play here, he would hit, when he was in his 50s, he would hit a 1-iron on that hole. He came back for the Club Pro Championship in 1974 or 5. He hit a 3 or a 4-iron on that hole. He's 20 years older or 15 years older and hitting 2 less clubs. So that tells you that the improvement in the equipment, clubs and balls, course conditions, everything considered, everything's longer. I mean, this is why the USGA's had such a input on trying to keep everybody on this level playing field. It's been hard to do. But clubs are definitely better than they ever were.
3 or 4 degrees on loft here, almost an inch here. What does that translate to a 3-iron for you and for me?
Well, we probably could have hit a 3-iron, a 25-year-old 3-iron, we probably would hit 190. Today we'll hit at 210, 215.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's a lot of yardage.
Yeah.
A secret for golfers out there. Thanks, Bob.
Hi, this is Dan DeCarlo. I'm the head pro here at the club at Longleaf, and I want to help you with your bunker shots today. Today we're talking about a downhill lie in a bunker. Being in a bunker isn't our favorite shot to begin with, but having a downhill lie is going to be even more difficult. What we're trying to do here when we hit this shot is we're actually working against the slope here. The slope is, because it's downhill, is going to make the golf ball come out very low. So what we're going to try to do here is make sure that we keep our shoulders as parallel to the ground as possible. The ground isn't flat here, it's a downhill lie, so I'm going to have my shoulders kind of going along with the slope. Now, this is going to produce a lower golf shot, so what we want to do is make sure that we have the golf club a little bit open, and the key to getting the golf ball up in the air on this shot is not sweeping the club back, but rather lifting the club straight up in the air and coming straight back down. Now, we may not make a big high follow-through on this shot because we're trying to swing the club along the slope. If we try to make a big follow-through, chances are we're going to come down behind, we're going to hit too far behind the ball, the club's going to hit the sand, it's going to skid through the sand, it's going to skull right into the back of the ball, and the ball's going to fly across the green. So it's okay on this shot, lift the club up high and finish a little bit lower. Try to finish down along the slope. Stability is real important on this shot, so we really want to make sure that we're good and solid on our left leg. This shot's going to come out kind of low, and it's going to probably roll on you a little bit. Don't worry about that. Just kind of play for that. All right, this is Dan DeCarlo here at the club at Longleaf, and hope this helps your game a little bit.
The first rule of golf describes the game. It was once decided that golf was a matter of hitting the ball into the hole in a succession of shots, until someone suggested to the British and the USGA that one shot could count as part of the rules of the game. There are 4 parts to Rule 1. The first one, as I said, is the definition of the game. The second part of this rule prohibits a player or his caddy from influencing the position or movement of a ball, such as spinning a ball while dropping it in order to get a preferable lie. The third part of the rule states that players cannot agree to waive a rule, such as the famous good rule in putting in advance. The fourth part of this rule says that if the rules don't cover a particular situation, well, then you should do what's fair. The Decisions Book of Golf lists not only all 34 rules of the game, but more than 1,100 decisions about those rules. Perhaps the most curious decision under Rule 1 concerns the player who hits his ball into the hole but does not realize it. Various scenarios here include the golfer who hits a provisional ball or hits a wrong ball. The rule says, however, that once the ball's in a hole, it's good. So all those shots he hit playing practice balls, a wrong ball, provisional balls, they don't count. That's Rule 1, Rules of Golf.
I think Special Olympics is wonderful.
The best thing that I've ever done in my life.
I tell my athletes, you're here because you're brave. You made it this far.
It's about the best thing that's ever happened to me because I became something I always wanted just to be a part of.
Just like a flower, it just made me blossom.
Doesn't matter if you win or lose. Just try your best.
I think we're called Special Olympics because we're special people.
I just feel a little proud of myself to reach so far.
One thing, I wanted to be an athlete. The Special Olympics gave me that opportunity.
You might can outread me, but I can outrun you.
This changed my life forever.
Changed my whole life, my whole attitude.
I have been given a special gift.
I'm happy. I'm wonderful. And I think that's great.
Well, that's a wrap for another edition of Sandhills Golf Weekly. I'm Michael Dann.
And I'm Rich Rushforth. I want to thank John Cleetwood and all the good folks here at Little River Golf Club for having us out this week.
I have the scorecard, Rich. Let's go play.
Let's do it.